Thank you. I'm sorry, I was the one that was late. So, it's always a good joke when you have to say it's a joke, right? Oh wow, the slide's already up. Well, I was going to go through how I got into this pretty quickly. I grew up in Chicago, and when I was young, I was in a band. That's me on the right. And all our equipment was stolen, so this club had a benefit for us, and nobody did anything. It was a disaster, so I went out and put up posters and gave out tickets to the college radio station and did all that stuff, and the show sold out. And day of show, the guy that booked the club wasn't there, but the owner of the club was there, and he said the guy that booked the club had quit, and would I book the club for a week or two until he could find somebody to book the club that really books clubs. And that's how I kind of got started. So I did shows at kind of this club called West End. We did 4 to 6 bands a night for 365 days a year. This was in the early 80s. And we had a blues night on Monday, and people would come by like Eric Clapton. I had a lot of fun. It was fun. I was like, this is fun. I'm having fun, and I made enough money to buy a beer or two, and it was good. And then I went to a bigger club called Tuts, and then I got a job at the Vic Theater. So I kind of just went from one situation to another. The Vic was a place that we restored. It's a theater similar to this, basically. It had been closed since the 30s, and so I learned a lot about theater restoration. It took about 2 years to get it back open. It's still in Chicago. It's on Sheffield at Belmont. It's a great room. And I had fun. I was still having fun. I met some people and had a good time. Then I moved to New York. I got a job as a booking agent, and I was there for about 4 months. And the owner of the booking agency got a job at William Morris, so he suddenly closed, and I had no job. So I ended up working at a thing called New Music Seminar, which is the precursor to South by Southwest. It was like a big conference internationally. And that was really good. I met a lot of people, met a lot of people internationally. They had about 20,000 people who would come to New York every summer for the weekend. And that was a lot of fun, too. And then I met a man named Ron Delsner, second from right there next to Ace and Rachel. And I worked for him. He's the primary promoter in New York City. We did shows from the Rolling Stones at Shea Stadium down to, the club. I booked a club called The Marquee where we had bands play, again, 4 bands a night, 365 days a year. So it was a lot of work, but I had fun. Was involved with starting a club called Irving Plaza, which is still around. In Roseland, I cut a deal at Roseland, and we did a lot of shows there. And this is now coming into like the late 80s. I had fun. I met a few people. That's me and Donny Osmond. And then I did a show at Yankee Stadium with Bill Graham. And this is Nelson Mandela at Yankee Stadium. So I ended up living at Yankee Stadium for about a week with Bill and got to know him. Happy to say that he decided to hire me. This is Bill Graham. He was a promoter in San Francisco primarily, but he had an office in New York, which I ended up running. And he unfortunately passed in 1990 in a tragic helicopter crash. And so I started out on my own at that point. And I met some interesting people at Bill Graham Presents, like Shelley. And so I ended up managing a band called Blues Traveler, who had before Bill passed. And at the time, it was a club band, so I was basically working out of my apartment, running everything off my Amex card and doing that. And I had somebody helping me. And anyway, did that for 11 years. That's us at Red Rocks 1 year. And we also started a tour called Horde Festival. Basically, there were no tours that we could get on this one summer. So we were checking with other bands. Fish couldn't get a tour. Spin Doctors couldn't get a tour. Widespread Panic couldn't get a tour. So we got 5 bands together with Aquarium Rescue Unit, and we did a tour that basically everybody said, we're all going to do this together as one. And when I called everybody's manager on Monday, they said, no, we're not. You can do the tour if you want to be at risk, but we're not going to be at risk. So John Popper and I, the lead singer of Blues Traveler, we decided to take this over and be at risk, and we got really lucky, basically. The biggest thing that happened was the Spin Doctors broke between the time when we booked the tour and when the tour played, and we ended up selling a lot of tickets and selling out. But we had door deals, like CBGB's type of deals, where we played Jones Beach for 65% of the door and made almost $300,000 cash that night. So it worked out really well, and so that continued for 8 years. And then I'd known these guys since Chicago, Cheap Trick. I started working for Cheap Trick, and some things happened with Blues Traveler after Bobby Sheehan died, and I ended up deciding I didn't want to do that anymore, and I quit. And I worked primarily on Cheap Trick for a while, and they were friends with other bands, so I got to know Joey Ramone and the Ramones. And so I started working for them also, and I did that for some time. There we go. And I moved to Charlottesville for personal reasons, family and stuff, cost of living, quality of life, all that, and the kids. And also everything was becoming digital, so I could work anywhere. I didn't need to be in New York. It was actually a distraction. So I got together with an old friend of mine, Peter Shapiro, and we decided we were going to start a festival. And so I looked around the country. We looked at a place in Saugerties, Colorado. We looked at some other sites, and I just kind of found this site through Michael Allenby, actually, of the Festi, right here in Nelson County. And it had all the features that you'd want in a good festival site. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's close to a lot of population centers and that. And it's at Oak Ridge. So we started Lockn Festival. This is from 2013. And we pretty much put on this mass gathering where we've got 4 days of music, just one band playing at a time, one genre of music. We are not all things to all people. We have a very specific agenda in how we're programming this. A lot of the bands play multiple days so that you know when you go there, there's going to be some deep tracks. Like this year, Robert Plant's playing for 2 days. He's probably going to run out of some of his solo stuff, so unfortunately he's going to have to play more Led Zeppelin than he normally would. So those type of things happen. And this is a second stage we developed last year. It's kind of an after-show thing. This was a special acoustic thing. This is Taj Mahal out in the woods. I hadn't done a show in a forest before, so I thought I'd bring this up. And that's the site overall. Basically, we quadrupled the population in Nelson County for 4 days. And they like it because so far at least we've brought a lot of people in, they've spent money, and they've left. And then we're doing a show tomorrow, actually, at a new, we ended up buying the property next to Oak Ridge so that we can bring in infrastructure and do things a lot more efficiently. It's helped immensely with our traffic plan with a lot of things. So we brought this property next door so we can do the permanent infrastructure. Because at Oak Ridge we have to leave everything as is. Like Lollapalooza with Grant Park, they have to leave it exactly as it is when they leave. Or Coachella at Indio at the Polo Grounds, they have to leave it as it is when they leave. So anyway, we built an amphitheater, which was kind of a happy accident. There was a huge hole in the ground where the prior owner had taken a lot of earth and put it somewhere else for some reason. And we were looking at it saying, well, what should this be? And I was like, fire pit. We should have fire, right? So Farmer Jay goes, okay, I can do that. So he gets out there with the bulldozer, and I get a phone call, and I'm all distracted. I'm walking around for like 15 minutes. And I turn around, and he's graded the top of this hole like this, like 12 feet deep for his land moving equipment device. And I'm like, wait, Jake, wait, hang on, amphitheater. So make another one, come 2 feet down and make another one, and then come 2 feet down and make another one. So we kind of just hung out on the farm for 3 days and terrace this hill. And it's really great. I mean, it sounds great. It looks great. It's out in the middle of the Blue Ridge. So we're going to have our first show there tomorrow. We're kind of taking it easy. This is a centerpiece area for Lockn, so we don't have to book shows. We don't have a sponsor that's demanding that we put in 20 shows a season or something like that. We can kind of just follow our muse and do what we want there, which is really great. And I think the best thing about where I'm at right now, I'm 55, so I'm older, and I've seen a lot and done a little, but is that really, really, I've been lucky. And I think a lot of, a lot of things in entrepreneurship have to deal with talent. You have to identify it or have it. And then persevering until timing and luck arrive. I could also talk about a lot of my failures. Every time I've been fired, in all honesty, that person did me the biggest favor they ever could have. It's been great. I can't thank the people that have fired me enough. I really can't. They've really inspired me to go a lot farther than I would have otherwise. What else can I say? I'd like to just take questions because, I know it's, I'm in a tough spot following Sean here. Thanks, you guys. Does anyone have any questions? Am I that entertaining? What's that? Oh, let's see. Like hairiest, like bad, like people dying. Well, that's happened at Horde Festival. We had, it was really unfortunate. A young man forgot he had a peanut allergy, and he went straight to the Thai food place, and he was done in about 30 seconds. That was bad. But there's certain things, you're going to bring a lot of people together. There's always going to be a certain liability. Like with rock shows, it's usually you have a few more drugs than normal, maybe. With country festivals, you have a lot more, especially lately, you have a lot more assault and battery and sexual assault. People are ready to fuck or fight, basically, at these things. You can't wear a cowboy hat into a country show anymore because the person in front of you wearing the cowboy hat will probably incite you to tip their hat, and the next thing you know, there's 100 people in a melee. Even at kid shows, the kids are getting lost. You got to lock the place down, and there's things like that. Or when I told this story earlier. I've forgotten about it. The show that the most people died at that I had anything to do with was Cher at Jones Beach, where I was I was there doing pre-box for Ron Delsner, and basically everybody there I think was suffering from OLD. Three died at that show though, and one was a lady who cheered so hard that she had a heart attack. Another was a lady that slipped and fell and broke her head open, and she died on the way to the hospital. It's tragic. It's not really, it was on the front of the Post the next day. 3 died at the Cher show. And then another man slipped and broke his femur and ended up passing, like 5 days later. But every type of show has a liability like that. We had a kids show at Holiday Star Theater with Don Henning, and they had this black leopard, and the black leopard was not on a leash. And but he was well trained. Nothing really bad happened. Well, it was really bad. But the cat walks right out into the center, lifts his tail, and just decides to have this diarrhea attack on like the first 20 rows, right? And so I had good instincts. I ran to the box office. I said, hide, close the blinds, get under the desk, lock the doors, pretend like no one's there, turn off the lights. And that way none of the staff could quit because the punch-out thing was in there. All the staff that weren't making very much money, they were like, we're out of here, this isn't. And Anyway, so that was so at every type of show there's a liability. Is what I'm trying to say. Yes, sir. Well, I think it's made it a lot better. Just from a safety perspective, the first thing is to have the infrastructure there that supports good tech. The first being cell service. So you have to have, robust cell service there. We had Verizon go down on us last year. I can't tell you how many customers they lost because they went down at our show. The AT&T people, they were just thrilled because they hadn't seen so much data go past their, through their cell on wheels, the cows, in any event before, because everybody's standing there Facebooking the show on their iPhones, wondering why it's kind of chunking out a little bit. But what happened at Lollapalooza in 2012, I think it was, or 2013, a big storm came in, and they knew it was coming. They had all the data on it. They knew when it was going to hit. They knew how fast it was moving, and it was pretty heavy. It was like 70-mile-an-hour winds and that. So they pulled the stages down. They got ready for it, and they messaged everybody through the app, and everybody there did exactly what they were told. It was crazy. It was like, leave for 2 hours and come back. And they also went to a lot of the restaurants that were in the area. We don't have restaurants, but they went to a lot of the restaurants in Chicago there because they hold it in Grant Park. And they said, listen, the storm's coming. We're going to be unleashing 90,000 people, into the streets here in about an hour. Why don't you do a discount on beer or hamburgers or something like that? We'll put it on our app, and we're going to try to fill your place with people. And everybody that did that was packed. All the restaurants, bars, everybody there loved them because for 2 hours, suddenly they were packed, and they did all this business, and it was wonderful. So I know it's great from a safety perspective, from an information perspective, it's great. You can see what's going on at any time, and you can message people that, these T-shirts are on sale at this time, or that there's all kinds of great stuff. I hire great people that do that, so I just know kind of the periphery of it. I'm not that into the details of it, but I see my time's expired, and I don't want to be rude to the great people that are about to follow me. So thanks for listening, and thank you very much. Appreciate it.